Okay, I've not done a video in a while, but there's something that I should have noticed a while ago and I didn't pick up on it. There's been a little number of sciences I've been diving into on my blog to do with the magnetic poles of the Earth both shifting at an ever increasing rate, which could be described as being exponential, and splitting. And along with that, the sun's activity has decreased to a point that scientists have never seen before. The pole shifts they've never seen before. There's been an increase in seismic activity and volcanic activity, including eruptions, which have literally gone from 2 or 3 per year about 4 or 5 years back when all this started, to 34 last year and 8 the year before. As a scientist, you have to recognise the fact that there's a connection. And when I started looking into this, I discovered it had been going on for quite a while. And with these being my actual interests, I don't quite know how I've missed them, but I have. And at first I couldn't quite believe the data and the facts I was seeing, so I had to look further and further and further into different areas of science. And the one thing I realised was that, I mean, not only could I now prove what I'd said for years, that climate change was complete rubbish, but I realised this has been going on a long time. It would affect many things, and it already has been. Right, but it would affect food. I knew this, and I've spoken about this, I've blogged about it, and I've posted about it. Because the changing temperatures, the cooling temperatures, will shorten the growing seasons. If you look at anyone talking about this, they all say this. What nobody's ever mentioned is the fact that this has already started. And I noticed it about a year ago. Only I didn't know everything that was going on at the time. What I'm about to show you has occurred a number of times, and I don't even do any shopping. Right, this is somebody else's shopping. Now what you're looking at here, you're probably wondering, why am I looking at a jar of pickled gherkins? Well, what you're actually looking at is a jar of cloudy pickled gherkins. And this has happened now, what I'm about to show you, with 4 jars of pickled gherkins, 2 or 3 jars of olives, and several jars of jams. Now if you don't know, jam is also known as a preserve. Right, and it was the first thing that I actually noticed, was somebody was complaining about a jar of jam going mouldy. This jar of gherkins, I couldn't tell you the names of any of the others, this one's Asda. This jar of gherkins, pickled gherkins, is off. And not just off, it's seriously off. Which is why the water's cloudy. Because when I noticed the jar, all the gherkins had what looked like silt from a river. In fact, let me see, you might be able to see some of that there, just some of it lying across the top there of that gherkin. You know, so they was all covered in it. So I saw the jar, of course immediately I knew what I was looking at, and I thought, oh, you know what, I've dug out my new little Nikon camera. I've managed to charge the battery up, my original camera, before I moved on and on and on to bridge cameras and sort of SLR type cameras and DSLTs. And let me do a video, because I also want to do a blog about it. Right, this jar of gherkins is seriously off. Right, and I realised because of the shortened growing seasons, you know, one chap talks online on YouTube that he used to import coffee beans from Myanmar, what we used to call Burma, and he said that the farmers there said 4, 5, 6 years ago that every year they lose 10 to 12% of their coffee production goes down, and the beans are not as good each year because they produce air pockets in the beans where there's not as much growing season. So the quality of the beans and the amount of the beans has gone down every year, and he was big on climate change. No, this can't be happening, you know, the world's warming up. But, you know, these guys living up a mountain, no access to fake news, you know, they're like, well, no, it's getting colder, and it gets colder every year, you know, and this is what's happening to the beans. And sure enough, this chap, David Dubine of Adapt 2030, realised over time they were right. So he looked into this a few years back, and he realised a few years back that it was all a load of rubbish. Now, it smells awful, by the way. Now, let me see if I can focus on this. On the lid, it's got the best before date. I can't see it on the screen. I'm gonna have to. It is September 2020. Right. So what I believe to be going on now, because I mean this would be unusual for it to happen even once, but it's not once. Right. This is like the third or fourth jar of Gherkins alone I've noticed. And this isn't even my house, and they told me that this has happened quite a few times with different things. I pointed out that pickles are pickles, right? This is not supposed to happen, nor should it happen with jams. That's why they're called preserves. And they said, oh yeah, you're right, I never thought of that. So what I believe's going on is they're cutting back to save money, probably because, you know, the food is going up, and probably with government help to hide the fact from the general public that something's going on, although everyone's acting crazy in every Western country, and even not just Western countries. I mean, you've got yellow vests protests going on. I mean, there's more or less a civil war in all but name in France. You know, everybody senses something's wrong in the world, but nobody really can quite put their finger on it. I mean, I've been looking for it for years, and although I know about the sciences of which I'm now researching, and I'm aware of things like continental drift, I'm aware of ice ages, mini ice ages, I'm aware of magnetic flips, you know. I've got a BSc in applied computing. I'm a bacteriologist, herpetologist, ichthyologist. I'm into orchidaceae, or at least I was. I've done a lot of videos, which if you look around on my channel you'll see. Seismology, volcanology, meteorology, it doesn't matter what science it is. You know, I have a deep interest. Quantum mechanics, astrophysics. You know, the trouble with a lot of scientists that you may listen to is they're very sort of narrow in their vision, and you know, and for 2 decades I thought, well, you have to look at the bigger picture to connect all the dots together. You know, now stuff's going on, somebody senses it, you know, everybody seems to sense it. Governments are doing and saying some crazy stuff, you know. I mean, the Gilets jaunes in France have been going on for 17 weeks, and the government are not giving in, and people are dying, losing limbs, hands, eyes, you know. It's just, you know, crazy times require crazy reasons. And to quote Sir Arthur Conan Doyle, although it might not be exactly, when you've eliminated the impossible rather, whichever remains, no matter how improbable, has to be the truth. And what remains may sound fantastic, but we have records of it happening many times before. And I believe this is the start, along with the Svalbard seed vault, which a Geordie friend of mine will tell you that when we first leaked out, or got out, that they created this seed vault, I said, something, poor that smells, something's coming. I said, and they know it. You know, I don't know what it is, I didn't know what it was. And, you know, I said it could be like an asteroid strike. You know, they always see these things. Oh, in 2029 an asteroid could hit us. See these things years off. You know, asteroid strike, epidemic, food shortages, you know, super volcano. I mean, the lists of possible global events are endless. Now, from the data I've looked at, I've realised that many of these global events are actually linked, because the sun is doing something it's never done before, and that seems to be affecting the poles, and the poles shifting, it seems to be affecting the seismic activity, and of course the seismic activity, long enough, strong enough, affects the volcanic activity, and then enough volcanoes going off pumps enough particulates and gases into the atmosphere, which will dim the sun, and the sun's cooled down, and it's been cool now for over a year, and it's not increasing. You know, it just now seems to be a combination of things that seem to be linked together. I don't ever recall ever watching a documentary or reading anywhere of all these sort of possible global events having any possible links to one another, but now they're actually happening before my eyes, because I look, and they appear to be linked. I mean, somebody said to me, you know, what would it be like? And I said, well, it has the possibility. I said, if you've seen the films The Core, where the magnetic field flips of the Earth, and 2012, which is continental drift, and The Day After Tomorrow, which is Ice Age, the possibility you have from this, and it could turn out to be something called an excursion, alright, but we're late in the day here. We are very late in the day here. You know, I mean, another 12-18 months from now, if things stay the way they are, it's not going to be good. So we're very late in the day, but an excursion is where, you know, the poles can shift around rapidly and look like they're going to go into a flip, but they could go back. They could go back, right? But they can't just snap back immediately, right? Because the location of the magnetic pole, right, is dependent on the magma, and for it to go back to where it is in a very short space of time means that pole would have to move at a speed it's never done before, and it's currently moving at a speed that's never seen before, and it would have to be, you know, a lot faster, or well, it could stop where it is right now. If it stops where it is right now, it wouldn't be too bad, but that's not what's going on. The speed of which it's travelling is increasing exponentially, and it's split, you know, but one North Pole was weaker than the other North Pole and seems to be dissipating and may already be gone. I don't know. But they've had to reprogram GPS systems because of this. Alright, this is not a pie in the sky, tinfoil that stuff, because I don't, yeah, it can be entertaining, but that's all it is to me, entertaining. I'm big on science and I'm big on facts. So if you're suddenly finding that you're getting things sort of go off, and food you're throwing away you've never had to before, you're not the only one. and I may have given you the reason why. Because I mean, oh God, that's the last time I take that lid off because that stinks. Because I think times financially are so tough. The last thing governments want to do is have the food prices go up. It would be the absolutely last thing they'd need right now, with all the yellow vest protests and everything else. You know, the French government, Emmanuel Macron, is not giving in. And I often say to people online, on Twitter, on minds.com, on Gab, you know, it's you have to think about it. You know, you have to be realistic about it. You know, normally a protest or 2 years ago would have got them to change things. And this is God knows how many protests now over 17 weeks, every Saturday, every Sunday, and there's been weekdays where they've been holding protests in every city in France. It's not just Paris, right? It's in Nantes, it's in Lyon, it's in Bordeaux, I think, you know, and I was shown a map and it looked like there was 100 cities, maybe more, where there's been protests, and it's happening in the Netherlands, and it's happening in Sweden, and it's happening in Belgium, and it's happening in Germany, and it's happening here in the UK, and they are not giving in. They are not giving in on Canada. So you have to think, you know, well, there has to be some pretty big reasons behind what is going on. You can't go, oh no, you know, I got a friend who doesn't think the pole shift thing is happening. Well, it is happening. You can't get around the data. It is happening. But when you try to explain what this will bring, oh no, that's not going to happen. Well, no, it's happening, right? You can't say, oh, well, I stuck my head out my garden window for 20 years and the weather's always been within this boundaries, so it's never going to happen. Because they'll be digging your frozen arse out of a ice cube, oversized ice cube somewhere 20 years from now. Don't live in denial. Be aware of the possibilities. And I found it surprising, because the people in denial got families. The first thing I thought of was my daughter and my grandchildren, and it's been surreal. It's ever since I found out and I've looked at the data, it's been surreal. I've tried to tell myself this isn't happening, you know, but then the science side of my brain kicks in and says, no, you know, you can't ignore the data. And it's very surreal. And it's a bit of a shock, really. It's a bit of a shock. I'm sort of stuck in a place. I could do a lot better. I'm trying to support many people and groups online. I'm trying to get lots of messages out. But unfortunately, I'm in a very bad situation. Health-wise, financially, I've been cut off from everything. I'm at an unregistered location. I've lost my business, my car, my home, my plants, my orchids I used to do videos on. It's all been taken away from me without any help whatsoever. My daughter was a victim 10 years ago, and she's been a repeat victim. She's been shat on, right, by the perpetrators, by the local council, by the government, by the police, by the social services, the social workers, right, who have treated her abusers as the victims, like they're victims. I mean, one of them got a cheque for £20,000, and well, we were treated like we were the criminals, you know. So there's been a lot of crazy stuff going on. This I never expected to see. I can go into, I mean, I talk about this on my blog, you know, what's going on with the possibilities of like grand solar minimums, this mass cooling they're now expecting. Everybody, don't doubt this, right? Because if you do a search, you'll find it in various newspapers. The BBC scientists said in 2014 we were possibly now heading for a mini ice age. That was uploaded to YouTube in 2014. Right, there's no denying this. So it's a bit of a wobble now. Trying to drink a tea while I'm doing this. There's some, there's some crazy things going on, and I'm just amazed that people I know don't want to talk about it. It's like, well, hang on a minute. Don't just think about yourself. Oh, I'm scared. I don't want to wear this stuff. Well, maybe you should. What? You don't care about your kids or your grandchildren? Wouldn't you like to know? Right, so you can start thinking about the best possible way to advise the people that you care about. But maybe I'm the only one that thinks like that. I don't know. Anyway, I talk about a lot of possibilities on my blog, so it's a bit difficult to sort of go into them here, but my blog has graphs. It's called, if you do a Google search, it's called a Saint Called Allnights. It won't be very hard to find, because anybody that searches that term, on Google, the top 3 or 4 results are normally mine. There's videos on there as well. There's links to the news articles I'm talking about: Metro, the Standard, the Telegraph, NASA. YouTube videos, Adapt 2030, Oppenheimer Ranch Project, a guy called Diamond's quite funny. I sort of listen to him. Mary Greeley is a lady that keeps an eye on the super volcano, the Yellowstone caldera. That's acting up, and the ground is rising and the temperature's shooting up. That goes off. We're in an ice age. It's the data's there. And it's not just one set of data. It's sets of data. Right, there's no, oh, this ain't happening, because it actually is happening. Right, what we don't, and what is happening has never happened before. You can't say that is going to happen, and you certainly can't say that's definitely not happening. Because anyone that says that's definitely not happening, right, especially if they don't listen, right, to the reasons why people are saying it's happening, then you look like an idiot. Right, the data is there and it's linked together, and I've done 16 parts on this. I called it pole shift in brackets parts 1 to 16. There are actually 18, but numbered there are 16 parts. There's a couple of additional bits, but this is a link. I didn't pick up on it straight away, even when I saw the pole shift stuff and the talk about the coffee beans and the food production and the massive 10,000 cold records that were broken this winter alone, and the fact that America's still buried in snow. And they should have started their growing season should have started like a month ago. So that's a month late, and I think it's supposed to be snowing about now. So, it might be 2 months late before, the growing season. And that might not sound like much, but what if it ended 2 months early? That's 4 months of growing gone. That's the way you have to think about it. And that has to have an effect on the prices. There's too many people. Right, we were running out of food. They've been telling us we're running out of food for like 10-20 years, and now this is happening. So there you go. So I just thought I'd do a video. It's got a bit out of hand. I was only going to talk about the food. Ended up talking about yellow vests and ice ages. So yeah, be careful. Don't think because I've got pickles or jams I can leave them in the cupboard for ages, because that's just going to cost you even more money when you're having to throw them away every 5 minutes. So just keep an eye on your food. Peace out.